When did you discover your grandfather had a second family? The DNA results stared back at me from my laptop screen at 2:47 a.m., and I felt my world tilt sideways. 43 close DNA matches I'd never heard of, all sharing significant segments with me. All with the same surname, Whitmore. The same surname as my grandfather, Robert Whitmore, who'd been dead for 3 years. I'd submitted the saliva kit to Ancestry DNA 6 weeks ago as part of my genealogy obsession, hoping to fill in some gaps in our sparse family tree. What I found instead was an entire forest I didn't know existed. Michael Whitmore, estimated relationship, half-uncle. Jennifer Whitmore Patterson, estimated relationship, half-aunt. David R. Whitmore, estimated relationship, half-uncle. The list went on, each name a knife twist in my chest. My fingers trembled as I clicked through profile after profile. Most had family trees attached, meticulously maintained and going back generations. In every single one, there he was, Robert James Whitmore, born December 15, 1936, died March 8, 2021. My grandfather. Their father. But according to their trees, he'd married someone named Margaret Helen Cruz in 1963. Not my grandmother, Dorothy. According to these people, Robert and Margaret had 4 children together, Robert Jr., Patricia, Michael, and Jennifer. I grabbed my phone and called my mom, not caring about the late hour. Sarah? What's wrong? Mom's voice was thick with sleep. Mom, did Grandpa ever mention anyone named Margaret? Or having other kids? A long pause. Honey, it's almost 3 in the morning. Are you okay? Please, Mom. This is important. Margaret Cruz? Did he ever? No, never. Your grandfather only had your dad. You know that. Sarah, you're scaring me. I hung up and dove deeper into the rabbit hole. Facebook profiles, obituaries, public records. The Whitmore family of Riverside, California, just 2 hours from where we lived in Orange County, had been living their lives in parallel to ours for decades. Robert Jr.'s LinkedIn showed he was a successful contractor. Patricia ran a boutique hotel in Palm Springs. Michael owned 3 auto repair shops. Jennifer was a pediatric nurse practitioner. All of them looked comfortable, successful. Happy. The obituary I found for Margaret Whitmore, who died in 2018, nearly made me sick. Beloved wife of Robert for 55 years, survived by her devoted husband and 4 children, services to be held at Riverside Memorial Gardens. Riverside Memorial Gardens. The same cemetery where we held Grandpa's service. I remembered that day clearly, how small our gathering was. Just me, Mom, Dad, my brother Jake, and about a dozen of Grandpa's old work friends. We couldn't afford a proper reception afterward. Mom had been stressed about the funeral costs for weeks. I pulled up the photos from Grandpa's service on my phone, scrolling through the sparse collection. Rows of mostly empty chairs. The bargain casket we'd scraped together to buy. The small, wilted flower arrangement from the grocery store. Then I searched Margaret Whitmore's obituary again and found something that made my blood run cold. Photos from her memorial service. Hundreds of people. Elaborate flower displays. And there, in the front row of mourners, was my grandfather. Crying. Holding the hand of a young man who looked exactly like my father. At the bottom of the obituary was a line that would haunt me. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made to the Margaret H. Whitmore Foundation for Children's Education, established by the family's generous endowment. Generous endowment. While we'd been struggling to keep Grandma's house out of foreclosure, I spent the next 4 hours methodically building profiles on each of my newfound half-relatives. By sunrise, I had enough information to write unauthorized biographies. Robert Jr., Bobby, as he went by, lived in a $2.8 million house in Riverside Hills. Property records showed Grandpa had co-signed the mortgage in 2015. Patricia's boutique hotel, Desert Rose Inn, had Robert James Whitmore listed as a founding investor when she'd purchased it in 2019. Michael's auto shops all shared the same business address as a property owned by something called RJW Holdings LLC. I didn't need to guess who RJW stood for. But it was Jennifer's Facebook that broke me. Photo after photo of family gatherings I'd never been invited to. Christmas mornings with Grandpa in a Santa hat, surrounded by grandchildren I didn't know existed. Birthday parties where he looked genuinely happy, happier than I'd ever seen him with us. One photo from last Thanksgiving made me physically nauseous. Grandpa at the head of a massive dining table, carved turkey in front of him, surrounded by at least 20 people. The caption read, "So grateful for our family patriarch and all his wisdom. Dad always says family is everything. Red heart. Family is everything." He'd said the exact same thing to me 2 months before he died, when I'd driven Grandma to his apartment for what would be their last visit together. She'd been so frail by then, using a walker, her medication costing more than her social security check. He'd hugged us goodbye and whispered those exact words in my ear. Apparently his definition of family was more selective than I'd realized. I called in sick to work and drove to Riverside Memorial Gardens. The cemetery was larger than I remembered, sprawling across rolling hills dotted with oak trees. I found Margaret's grave in Section C, row 15. The headstone was black granite with gold lettering, expensive. Fresh flowers adorned the base, white roses that couldn't have been there more than a day or 2. Grandpa's grave was in Section M, row 3. A 15-minute walk across the cemetery. His headstone was gray concrete with basic engraving. No flowers except the plastic ones Mom had left months ago, now faded and weather-beaten. But here's what made my chest tight with rage. The graves were oriented so you could see one from the other if you knew where to look. He'd planned this. Even in death, he positioned himself to keep watch over both his families. I was photographing both headstones when my phone rang. Jake. Mom's freaking out about your call last night, he said without preamble. She thinks you're having some kind of breakdown. Are you? Jake, what do you know about Grandpa's finances when he died? What do you mean? I mean his will. His assets. Did he leave anything besides that old Ford and a couple thousand in his checking account? My brother was quiet for a moment. Why are you asking? Just answer me. Sarah, you were at the will reading. Mr. Henderson went through everything. The car, the bank account, some savings bonds worth maybe $800 total. There wasn't anything else. I thought about Margaret's foundation. Patricia's hotel investment. Bobby's house co-signature. Jake, I need you to do something for me. Call Mr. Henderson and ask for copies of all the probate documents. Everything. What's this about? I think Grandpa had money we don't know about. A lot of money. That's impossible. If he had money, why would Grandma have lost the house? That was exactly the question keeping me awake at night. That afternoon, I sat in Mr. Henderson's cramped law office with Jake, watching our family's attorney shuffle through manila folders with arthritic hands. At 78, Henderson had been Grandpa's lawyer for over 20 years, and his office looked like it hadn't been updated since the Carter administration. Here we are, Henderson wheezed, pulling out a thin folder. Robert Whitmore, deceased March 8, 2021. Very straightforward estate. Jake leaned forward. Sarah thinks there might have been assets we missed. Henderson's watery blue eyes flicked to me, then back to the papers. I can assure you, everything your grandfather owned went through proper probate. The 1998 Toyota Camry, valued at $3,200. Checking account at Wells Fargo with $2,847.33. Savings bonds totaling $1,156.50. His apartment was rented, no property to transfer. What about other bank accounts? I pressed. Investment accounts? Business interests? Miss Whitmore, I handled your grandfather's legal affairs for decades. He was a simple man with simple finances. Worked at the rail yard for 37 years, retired on Social Security and a modest pension. There were no hidden assets. But I was studying Henderson's face carefully, and something was off. The way his eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. The slight tremor in his voice when he said simple man. Mr. Henderson, I said slowly, did my grandfather ever mention anyone named Margaret Cruz? The reaction was immediate. Henderson's face went pale, and he actually dropped the folder. Paper scattered across his desk. Where did you hear that name? Jake looked between us, confused. Who's Margaret Cruz? I kept my eyes locked on Henderson. She was Grandpa's wife. His other wife. The one he was married to for 55 years while claiming to be a widower to our family. Henderson was fumbling with the papers, trying to reassemble them with shaking hands. I think this meeting is over. If you have concerns about the probate, you'll need to file a formal petition with the court. You knew. My voice came out flat, deadly calm. You knew about both families. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo from Margaret's memorial service, the one with Grandpa in the front row. Then explain this. Explain why our grandfather was chief mourner at another woman's funeral in 2018. In this very cemetery where we buried him. Henderson stared at the photo for a long moment, then sank back in his chair like a deflated balloon. Your grandfather was my client. I had ethical obligations. Ethical obligations to who? I was standing now, my voice rising. To him? What about ethical obligations to his legitimate family? To my grandmother who died thinking she was a widow when she was actually just, what, forgotten? Sarah. Jake's voice was warning, but I was past caring about decorum. Henderson removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. There were complications with your grandfather's situation. Legal complexities you wouldn't understand. Try me. A long silence. Finally, Henderson spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Your grandfather maintained two separate lives for over 30 years. Two families, two sets of financial obligations. When Margaret became ill in 2016, he had to make certain arrangements to ensure her care. What kind of arrangements? The kind that required liquidating assets. Transferring holdings. Making sure both families would be provided for after his death. Jake was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Sarah, what the hell is going on? I ignored him, focusing on Henderson. Both families. But only one family got provided for, didn't they? Only one family got the inheritance. Only one family got to keep their house. Henderson's silence was answer enough. How much? I demanded. How much money are we talking about? Henderson stood up slowly, his joints creaking. This meeting is over. If you wish to contest the will, hire your own attorney. But as we left, I heard him make a phone call. Just 4 words that confirmed everything I suspected. Bobby? We have a problem. I sat in my car outside Henderson's office, hands shaking with rage while Jake demanded answers. But I wasn't listening to him anymore. I was thinking about that phone call, Bobby? We have a problem. Bobby. Robert Jr., my half-uncle who lived in a $2.8 million house that Grandpa had co-signed for. Sarah, you need to explain what just happened in there, Jake said, his voice tight. Who is Margaret Cruz? What other family? I started the engine and pulled out Henderson's business card, flipping it over. In faded blue ink, someone had written a phone number on the back. The same number I'd found listed for RJW Holdings LLC. Jake, I need you to trust me on something, I said, putting the car in drive. Can you take tomorrow off work? What? Why? Because we're going to pay our new family a visit. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Henderson's face when I'd mentioned Margaret's name, the pure terror. And that phone call. By now, Bobby Whitmore knew his father's other family had discovered the truth. At 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed with a Facebook message from an account I didn't recognize. Asterisk Jennifer Whitmore Patterson, hi Sarah. I think we need to talk, asterisk. My heart hammered against my ribs. I clicked on her profile, the pediatric nurse, one of Grandpa's other children. In her profile photo, she was wearing scrubs and smiling next to a Christmas tree. She looked like my father around the eyes. I typed back, how long have you known about us? The response came immediately, like she'd been waiting. Asterisk Jennifer, always. Dad told us about your family when we were kids. Said your grandmother had been his first wife, that it ended badly, but he still tried to help when he could, asterisk. My fingers flew across the keyboard, asterisk help? We lost everything. Grandma died in a nursing home because we couldn't afford her medications, asterisk. Jennifer, that's not what we were told. Me, what were you told? A long pause. Then, asterisk, can you meet me tomorrow? There are things you need to know. Things about Dad's finances that don't add up, asterisk. I stared at the message. One of them was willing to talk. Maybe even willing to tell the truth. Me, where? Asterisk Jennifer, Denny's on University Avenue in Riverside. 2 p.m. Come alone, asterisk. The next morning, I lied to Jake and told him I had food poisoning. I wasn't ready to bring him into this, not until I knew exactly what we were dealing with. At 1:30 p.m., I was sitting in a corner booth at Denny's, watching every person who walked through the door. Jennifer arrived 10 minutes late, and seeing her in person was like looking at a feminine version of my father. Same dark hair, same stubborn jawline, same way of scanning a room before sitting down. She slid into the booth across from me, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup like it was an anchor. You look like Uncle Danny, she said quietly. Your father. We've seen pictures. Uncle Danny? The words tasted bitter. He knew you existed too? Jennifer shook her head. No, just pictures Dad showed us over the years. He was proud of Danny's military service. Proud of you finishing college. But not proud enough to actually help us. Jennifer's face crumpled slightly. Sarah, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it. Dad didn't leave you guys out of his will. The coffee cup slipped in my hands. What? According to Dad, he'd been sending money to your family for years. Monthly checks to help with your grandmother's care, your college loans, the house payments. He showed us the bank statements. The restaurant seemed to tilt around me. That's impossible. We never received any money from him. Jennifer reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. I brought copies. Dad kept meticulous records. Inside were photocopies of bank statements showing monthly transfers of $2,800 to an account at First National Bank. The account holder, Dorothy Whitmore. My grandmother. But Grandma had banked at Wells Fargo her entire life. Jennifer, I whispered, this account doesn't exist. Jennifer's face went white as she stared at the bank statements. What do you mean it doesn't exist? My grandmother never had an account at First National Bank. Ever. She banked at Wells Fargo for 43 years. I spread the photocopies across the sticky Denny's table, my hands shaking. Look at these dates. March 2019, $2,800 transferred to Dorothy Whitmore. April 2019, another $2,800. This was happening right up until Grandpa died. But that's impossible. Dad showed us these statements himself. He said. Jennifer stopped mid-sentence, her face cycling through confusion, realization, then horror. Oh my God. What? She was frantically scrolling through her phone. The Dorothy Whitmore account. Sarah, what's your grandmother's full name? Dorothy Mae Whitmore. Maiden name Collins. Jennifer's fingers froze on her screen. The account Dad showed us, it was Dorothy M. Whitmore. We assumed the M stood for May. A cold dread settled in my stomach. What does it stand for? Jennifer turned her phone toward me. She pulled up a public records search. Dorothy Michelle Whitmore, age 52, current resident of Riverside, California. Married to Robert J. Whitmore Jr. in 2003. I stared at the screen, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. That's Bobby's wife. My sister-in-law, Jennifer whispered. Dad was sending money to Bobby's wife Dorothy. All those years he told us he was supporting your family, he was actually giving Bobby an extra $2,800 a month. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Bobby knew. He knew Grandpa was supposed to be sending us money, so he had his wife open an account under the same name. They were stealing from us. Jennifer looked like she might throw up. For 3 years. While your grandmother was losing her house. I pulled out my phone and started calculating. $2,800 a month for 3 years. That's over $100,000. Money that should have saved Grandma's house. Should have paid for her medications. Should have kept her home instead of that awful nursing facility where she died. Sarah, I swear we didn't know. Bobby handles a lot of Dad's financial stuff. He has power of attorney for some of the business accounts. We trusted him. What business accounts? I leaned forward. Henderson said Grandpa was just a simple railroad worker. Jennifer laughed bitterly. Simple railroad worker? Dad owned 6 rental properties in Riverside County, had controlling interest in a construction company, and invested in real estate development projects. He was worth almost $4 million when he died. The number hit me like a physical blow. $4 million. While we'd scrambled to pay for Grandma's funeral. Where did it all go? Split 4 ways between us kids, plus some charitable donations. We each inherited about $850,000. Jennifer's voice was barely audible. Sarah, we thought your family had already been taken care of. Dad always said you guys were proud and didn't want handouts, but that he made sure you were okay. I thought about Grandma's final months. The way she'd rationed her heart medication because it was too expensive. How she'd apologized for being a burden when we'd had to move her to the nursing home. The look on Mom's face when she'd realized we couldn't afford the house payments anymore. I need to see those real estate records, I said. All of them. And I need contact information for everyone who inherited money. Jennifer nodded quickly. I'll get you everything. But Sarah, there's something else. Something that's going to make you even angrier. I couldn't imagine what could make this worse. The nursing home where your grandmother died. Sunset Manor? What about it? Dad donated $50,000 to their charity fund in 2020. In Margaret's memory. Jennifer's voice cracked. He gave them money for improvements to the memory care wing while your grandmother was literally dying there because you couldn't afford better care. I stood up so fast the table shook, coffee spilling across the stolen bank statements. The rage that had been building for days finally erupted, and I had to grip the edge of the booth to keep from screaming. Jennifer grabbed my wrist. Sarah, wait. Don't leave. We need to figure out how to fix this. Fix this? I turned back to her. Your brother stole over $100,000 from my dying grandmother. Your family lived comfortable lives built on money that should have kept her in her own home. How exactly do we fix that? We make Bobby pay it back. With interest. And we split Dad's real inheritance the way it should have been split from the beginning. I studied her face, looking for deception. Why would you do that? Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. Because what happened to your grandmother is exactly what Dad would have done to our mom if she hadn't died first. The drive back to Orange County felt like it took hours, even though Jennifer's revelations kept replaying in my head at lightning speed. By the time I reached my apartment, I had 17 missed calls from Jake and a voicemail from Mom asking if I was having some kind of crisis. I was having a crisis, all right. A $4 million crisis. I spread Jennifer's documents across my kitchen table like a war council planning an attack. Property deeds, bank records, investment portfolios, all bearing Robert James Whitmore's signature. The man who'd patted my head at family barbecues and told me college was probably too expensive for working folks like us had owned a construction company worth $1.2 million. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer, * Bobby knows we met. He's asking questions, *. Before I could respond, another message, * Patricia wants to meet tomorrow. She says there are more problems with Dad's finances, *. More problems. Like stealing from a dying woman wasn't problem enough. I called Jake. He answered on the first ring. Where the hell have you been? Mom's ready to drive over there with a wellness check. Jake, I need you to sit down. I'm already sitting. Sarah, you're scaring everyone. First the weird questions about Grandpa, then you disappear all day. Grandpa was a bigamist. He had another wife and 4 kids. They inherited almost $4 million while we got nothing. I said it all in one breath, like ripping off a band-aid. Silence. Then, that's not funny. I'm not joking. I started reading from Jennifer's documents. Robert James Whitmore, owner of RJW Holdings LLC, assessed value $1.2 million. Rental properties at 847 Pine Street, 1205 Oakwood Drive, 2847 Riverside Avenue. Stop. Jake's voice was barely a whisper. Just stop. You're telling me Grandpa was married to someone else? While Grandma was alive? For over 30 years. And Jake, it gets worse. He was supposed to be sending us money, $800 a month to help with Grandma's care. But his son Bobby set up a fake account and stole it all. I heard Jake's sharp intake of breath. How much money? Over $100,000 that we know of. Maybe more. I thought about Grandma's last Christmas, when she'd insisted we not exchange gifts because money was too tight. Money that could have saved the house. Could have kept her alive. I'm coming over. Jake, wait. But he'd already hung up. 20 minutes later, he was pounding on my door with the intensity of someone ready to commit violence. I'd never seen my usually calm brother look so dangerous. Show me everything, he demanded, pushing past me into the kitchen. Every document, every bank record, every goddamn lie. For the next 2 hours, we went through Jennifer's evidence piece by piece. Jake's anger was cold, methodical, the same focus he'd had in Afghanistan, where details meant the difference between life and death. This Bobby character, he said, studying the fake bank statements. He didn't just steal money. He covered it up. Made fake documents to show his siblings. This is organized fraud. Jennifer says she wants to make it right. Jake snorted. Jennifer says a lot of things. But she's been living on stolen money for 3 years, hasn't she? Her inheritance, her comfortable life, all of it built on letting Grandma die in poverty. I wanted to defend Jennifer, but Jake was right. Whatever her intentions now, she'd benefited from our suffering. My phone rang. Unknown number with a Riverside area code. Sarah Whitmore? The voice was deep, authoritative. This is Robert Whitmore Jr. I believe you met with my sister yesterday. Bobby. The man who'd stolen our grandmother's lifeline. We need to talk, he continued. There seemed to be some misunderstandings about our father's financial arrangements. I put the phone on speaker and caught Jake's eye. He nodded grimly. The only misunderstanding, I said, is how you thought you'd get away with stealing $100,000 from a dying woman. A pause. I think you'll find the situation is more complicated than Jennifer explained. Can you meet me tomorrow at 3 p.m.? Henderson's office. The lawyer's office. Where this had all started. I'll be there. Good. And Sarah? Bring your own attorney. The next morning, I sat in attorney Lisa Chen's sleek downtown office, watching her flip through the evidence Jennifer had given me. At 35, Chen had a reputation for handling complex estate disputes, and her hourly rate was going to drain my savings account. But after Bobby's ominous phone call, I wasn't walking into Henderson's office defenseless. This is fascinating, Chen murmured, studying the fake bank statements. And deeply illegal. Your half-brother didn't just commit wire fraud, he created a paper trail that implicates the estate attorney. What do you mean? Henderson had to know these Dorothy M. Whitmore transfers were fraudulent. He's been your grandfather's lawyer for 20 years, he would have known your grandmother's banking information, her full legal name. The fact that he processed estate documents while this parallel account existed suggests conspiracy. Jake leaned forward from his chair beside me. So we can go after both of them? Potentially. But first, let's see what Robert Jr. has to say for himself. At 2:45 p.m., we walked into Henderson's office to find it transformed. The cramped, outdated space had been cleared of its usual clutter, and a polished conference table now dominated the center. Seated around it were 5 people I'd never seen in person but recognized from Facebook photos. Bobby Whitmore looked exactly like my father would in 20 years, same broad shoulders, same premature gray, same way of commanding a room just by sitting still. Next to him sat a woman with perfectly styled blonde hair who had to be Dorothy M. Whitmore, the fake account holder. Patricia looked nervous, constantly checking her phone. Michael kept his arms crossed, radiating hostility. Jennifer avoided eye contact entirely. Henderson sat at the head of the table, looking like he'd aged a decade since yesterday. Bobby stood as we entered, extending his hand with practiced charm. Sarah, Jake. I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances. I ignored his hand. Are you sorry about the circumstances, or sorry you got caught? His smile faltered slightly. Chen took her seat beside me, setting a thick folder on the table with deliberate authority. Before we begin, Bobby said, I want you to understand that our father put all of us in a difficult position. He made financial commitments to both families that were challenging to honor simultaneously. Cut the bullshit, Jake said flatly. You stole money meant for our dying grandmother. Dorothy M. Whitmore, Bobby's wife, spoke for the first time, her voice shaky. It wasn't supposed to be permanent. Bobby said we were just holding it until your family was ready to accept help. Shut up, Dorothy, Bobby snapped, and I saw a flash of something ugly cross his face. Chen opened her folder. Mr. Whitmore, my client has documentation showing systematic fraud totaling $134,400 over 3 years. That includes the monthly transfers plus accumulated interest your father intended to provide. Patricia looked up sharply. Wait, $134,000? Bobby, you told us it was only a few thousand. Patricia, don't. No, I want to understand this. Patricia turned to me, her voice rising. How much money are we talking about total? Because if Dad was sending you guys $2,800 a month, and he was also covering our mortgage payments, and Mom's medical bills, and the business investments. She trailed off, her face pale. Michael uncrossed his arms. Bobby, show them Dad's real bank records. Michael, that's not. Show them the fucking records, Bobby. The room erupted. Jennifer started crying. Dorothy was hyperventilating. Patricia was shouting questions while Michael demanded answers. And through it all, Bobby sat frozen, realizing his carefully constructed lies were unraveling in real time. Henderson finally spoke, his voice barely audible over the chaos. There were 2 trusts. Everyone went silent. Your father established 2 separate trusts in 2018. One for each family. Henderson's hand shook as he reached for another folder. The Riverside Trust received $2.1 million. The Orange County Trust was supposed to receive $1.9 million. I felt the room spin around me. Supposed to receive? Henderson looked directly at Bobby. The Orange County Trust funds were transferred to the Riverside Trust 3 months before your grandfather died. Bobby has power of attorney. He moved everything. Bobby had stolen almost $2 million. The silence that followed Henderson's words was deafening. $2 million. Bobby hadn't just stolen monthly payments, he'd stolen our entire inheritance. That's impossible, Patricia whispered, staring at her brother. Bobby, tell them that's not true. But Bobby's face had gone gray, and he was staring at the table like it might swallow him whole. Dorothy was making small whimpering sounds beside him. Chen leaned forward, her voice razor sharp. Mr. Henderson, do you have documentation of this trust transfer? Henderson's arthritic hands fumbled through the folder, producing a stack of papers. The transfer was executed on December 15, 2020. Robert's birthday. He was in the hospital for pneumonia at the time. Jake's chair scraped against the floor as he stood. You moved $2 million while our grandfather was unconscious in a hospital bed? He wasn't unconscious, Bobby said quickly. He was confused. The medications were making him confused about his finances. I was protecting the family assets. Which family? I asked, my voice deadly calm. Michael was reading over Henderson's shoulder, his face growing darker by the second. Bobby, this says you transferred the funds to an account in the Cayman Islands. What the hell is in the Cayman Islands? It's a temporary holding account. It's money laundering, Chen interrupted. Mr. Whitmore, you've just confessed to elder abuse, wire fraud, and international tax evasion in front of 6 witnesses. Dorothy started hyperventilating in earnest. Jennifer was sobbing openly now. But Patricia's face had transformed from confusion to pure rage. Bobby, she said, standing slowly, where did the money come from for my hotel purchase? Patricia, don't. The $400,000 you loaned me in 2019. The loan you said came from Dad's construction business. Where did that money actually come from? Bobby's silence was answer enough. Patricia turned to me, her face crumpling. Oh God. Sarah, the money I used to buy my hotel, it was yours, wasn't it? It was supposed to pay for your grandmother's care. The math was devastating. $400,000 would have covered Grandma's medications for years. Would have paid for in-home nursing care. Would have let her die in her own bedroom instead of a sterile facility that smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. What about my auto shops? Michael asked, his voice hollow. The $300,000 expansion loan? Bobby slumped in his chair. Michael. What about our house down payment? Jennifer whispered. The $150,000 you said was an early inheritance? I was watching a family disintegrate in real time, and every revelation was another knife twist. These people, my half-siblings, had built their comfortable lives on money stolen from my dying grandmother. Money that could have given her dignity in her final years. How much is left? Jake demanded. Of the $2 million, how much is left? Bobby finally looked up, and I saw something that might have been shame across his features. About $800,000. The rest went to family loans and investments. Investments, Chin repeated. Mr. Whitmore, you do realize that your siblings are now accessories to fraud? Every loan, every business purchase, every financial transaction using the stolen trust funds makes them complicit. The color drained from everyone's faces as the legal implications hit home. Patricia stood abruptly, her chair toppling backward. I'm calling my lawyer. Bobby, I want every penny I borrowed paid back to Sarah's family immediately. Patricia, you can't just. Watch me. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Jennifer, Michael, if you have any conscience left, you'll do the same thing. As she stormed out, I realized the Whitmore family civil war had officially begun. And I was going to use every second of it to get justice for Grandma. The meeting dissolved into chaos after Patricia stormed out. Michael followed her, muttering about lawyers and frozen assets. Jennifer sat frozen in her chair, mascara streaming down her cheeks, while Dorothy M. Whitmore had progressed to full panic attack, breathing into a paper bag Henderson had produced from somewhere. Only Bobby remained composed, which somehow made everything worse. Sarah, he said, straightening his tie like we were discussing a minor business disagreement instead of the systematic destruction of my family. I think we can work something out. Chen's hand landed firmly on my arm before I could respond. My client has nothing to discuss until full financial restitution is made. Full restitution. Bobby laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want me to liquidate my children's college funds? Foreclose on Patricia's hotel? Destroy 4 families to make 1 family whole? You destroyed our family first, Jake said, his voice carrying that dangerous military calm I recognized from his worst days after deployment. While our grandmother was rationing her heart medication, your kids were probably getting piano lessons paid for with her money. Bobby's mask finally slipped. Your grandmother was 91 years old. My kids have their whole lives ahead of them. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Henderson actually recoiled. Even Dorothy stopped hyperventilating to stare at her husband in horror. There it is, I said softly. You think her life was worth less because she was old. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. I stood, gathering Chen's documents. Mr. Henderson, I assume you'll be providing complete financial records to my attorney? Henderson nodded rapidly, looking like he wanted to crawl under his desk. Of course. Everything. As we headed for the door, Bobby called out one last time. Sarah, wait. You don't understand the full picture here. I turned back. What picture is that? Dad didn't just have 2 families. There's a 3rd trust you don't know about yet. The word stopped me cold. Chen's grip tightened on her briefcase. Jake took a step toward Bobby like he was considering physical violence. What are you talking about? I managed. Bobby's smile returned, predatory now. Dad was very thorough about covering his tracks. The Riverside Trust, the Orange County Trust that I managed, and the Henderson Trust. All eyes turned to our elderly lawyer, who had gone completely white. Henderson Trust? Chen asked sharply. $50,000 a year for 20 years, Bobby continued, enjoying the bombshell. For legal services and discretion. Isn't that right, Mr. Henderson? You've been getting paid very well to keep Dad's secrets. Henderson was gripping his chest, and for a moment I thought he might be having a heart attack. Bobby, you can't, that was attorney-client privilege. Attorney-client privilege doesn't cover criminal conspiracy, Chen said, her voice like ice. Mr. Henderson, how much money have you received from the Whitmore Trusts over the past 20 years? I need to call my own attorney. Jake laughed bitterly. Jesus Christ. Even the lawyer was getting paid off. Sarah, this whole thing goes deeper than we thought. Bobby was watching our faces, clearly pleased with the chaos he created. So you see, it's not just about the money I moved around. There are a lot of people who've been keeping Dad's secrets for a very long time. I thought about all those years of struggling. All those times we'd mentioned money troubles to Grandpa, and he just shrugged and said times were tough for everyone. Meanwhile, he was paying Henderson $50,000 a year just to stay quiet about his double life. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer, * Bobby's lying about something. Dad's real will is in a safe deposit box at Wells Fargo. Box 847. I have the key, *. I showed the message to Chen, who raised an eyebrow. Miss Chen, I said loud enough for everyone to hear, I think we need to make a stop at Wells Fargo. Bobby's confident expression flickered. Sarah, whatever Jennifer told you is probably more honest than anything you've said in the past hour. I looked directly at him. See you in court, Uncle Bobby. As we left Henderson's office, I could hear Dorothy crying again and Bobby's voice rising in anger. But I didn't care anymore. Let them tear each other apart. I had a safe deposit box to open. Wells Fargo's safe deposit box vault felt like a tomb, all sterile lighting and reinforced steel. Jennifer sat beside me in the cramped viewing room, her hands shaking as she inserted the key into box 847. Chen stood behind us, documenting everything with her phone camera, while Jake paced the small space like a caged animal. I found this key in Mom's jewelry box after she died, Jennifer said quietly. Dad said it was for some old insurance papers, but after everything we learned today. She turned the key and lifted the metal lid. Inside were 3 manila envelopes, each labeled in Grandpa's careful handwriting, Original Will 2018, Insurance Policies, and For Sarah's Family Urgent. My heart hammered as Jennifer handed me the envelope with my name on it. Inside were bank statements, property deeds, and a handwritten letter dated December 20th, 2020, 5 days after Bobby had allegedly moved our trust money. Sarah. Asterisk if you're reading this, then Bobby has probably done something terrible, and I'm not alive to fix it. I've suspected for months that he's been moving money around, but I needed proof before I could act, asterisk. Asterisk I've been recording our phone conversations since November. The recordings are in safety deposit box 1205 at the same bank. Jennifer has that key too, though she doesn't know it yet. Check the lining of your mother's jewelry box, sweetheart, asterisk. Asterisk Bobby thinks he's smarter than everyone else, but he got sloppy. The Cayman Islands account he set up? It's in his name only, which means the money transfers were unauthorized from the start. I never signed those papers, and the signature analysis I had done proves it, asterisk. Asterisk Sarah, your grandmother deserved better. You all deserved better. I was a coward who took the easy path of letting Bobby handle things instead of doing right by both my families. I can't undo the pain I caused, but I can give you the tools to get justice, asterisk. Asterisk the real will is in this box. Bobby and Henderson think they destroyed all copies, but I always kept one step ahead. Your family's trust was never actually dissolved. Bobby was moving money from accounts he thought were connected to your trust, but those were just decoy accounts I set up when I got suspicious, asterisk. Asterisk your real inheritance is in the insurance policy's envelope. $4 million in life insurance, with your father Daniel as the primary beneficiary. Bobby doesn't know these exist, asterisk. Asterisk make him pay for what he did to Dorothy, your grandmother, not his wife. She deserved to die in her own home, asterisk. I'm sorry, I wasn't brave enough to love you all openly. Grandpa. Jennifer was reading over my shoulder, her face cycling through shock, relief, and renewed anger. He knew. Dad knew Bobby was stealing, and he set traps. Jake grabbed the insurance envelope with shaking hands. Inside were policies from 3 different companies, each worth over $1 million, all listing my father as beneficiary. The total death benefit was $4.2 million, more than enough to cover what Bobby had stolen, plus the inheritance we'd never received. This changes everything, Chen said, photographing each document. If your grandfather suspected fraud and documented it, we have grounds for criminal charges, not just civil recovery. My phone rang. Patricia. Sarah, you need to know something. I just got home and found Bobby in my office, going through my computer. He was deleting email threads about Dad's financial arrangements. Patricia, we just found. There's more. I called Michael after I left Henderson's office. His business accounts have been frozen. Someone filed fraud reports this afternoon, and the FBI is involved now. FBI. The word sent chills down my spine. Bobby's panicking, Patricia continued. He knows something's coming. But Sarah, there's something else. I found a letter in Dad's handwriting hidden in my hotel files. He left instructions for all of us kids, specific things we're supposed to do if Bobby ever overstepped his authority. Jennifer was frantically digging through her mother's jewelry box, and suddenly she held up another small key. Found it. Box 1205. The recorded phone conversations were about to destroy Bobby's life. And honestly, after what he'd put my grandmother through, I was going to enjoy every second of it. Patricia, I said into the phone, how fast can you get to Wells Fargo? 20 minutes later, Patricia burst through the bank doors looking like she'd driven 90 miles an hour to get there. Her perfectly styled hair was disheveled, and she clutched a manila envelope against her chest like a lifeline. I brought Dad's letter, she said breathlessly as we crowded around box 1205. And I called Michael and Jennifer. They're driving here now. Chen raised an eyebrow. Are you sure you want all the siblings present for this? If these recordings implicate them in the fraud. They don't, Patricia interrupted. I read Dad's letter 3 times on the drive over. He specifically states that Michael, Jennifer, and I were unknowing recipients of stolen funds. Bobby told us the money came from Dad's construction business profits. Jake was studying Patricia's face carefully. Why should we trust you now? You've been living off our grandmother's money for 3 years. Patricia's composure finally cracked. Because I mortgaged my house yesterday to start paying you back before I even knew how much Bobby had actually stolen. Because I can't sleep at night knowing that sweet old woman died in a nursing home while I was renovating a hotel with her money. Jennifer inserted the second key into box 1205, her hands steadier now. Patricia's telling the truth. She's been asking questions about Dad's finances since Mom died. Bobby always shut her down, said she was too emotional to handle business matters. The box opened to reveal a digital voice recorder and a stack of CDs, each labeled with dates from November and December 2020. Jennifer picked up the recorder and pressed play. Bobby's voice filled the small room, tinny but unmistakable. Dad, the Orange County Trust transfer is complete. I've moved the remaining $847,000 to the Cayman account as discussed. Then Grandpa's voice, weaker but clearly alert. Bobby, I never authorized any Cayman account. What are you talking about? A pause. Dad, you're confused again. We talked about this last week. The hospital medications are affecting your memory. My memory is fine. I want those accounts restored immediately. Dad, trust me on this. The family lawyers say offshore accounts are better for tax purposes. Sarah's family will get their money eventually, but this protects everyone. Sarah's family was supposed to get their money 3 months ago. Where is it, Bobby? Another pause, longer this time. It's complicated, Dad. There were some irregularities with their trust paperwork. Legal issues that need to be resolved first. What kind of irregularities? Nothing serious. Just signatures that need to be verified. Henderson is working on it. The recording cut off, and the room fell silent. Patricia was crying quietly, and even Jake looked shaken by hearing Grandpa's voice again. There are 47 recordings, Jennifer said, checking the CD labels. The last one is dated March 6th, 2 days before Dad died. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, * stop digging or everyone gets hurt. This is bigger than just Bobby. A friend *. I showed the message to Chen, who immediately took screenshots. We need to contact the FBI immediately. This is witness intimidation. Wait, Patricia said, grabbing my arm. Before we involve federal agents, you need to hear the rest of Dad's letter. There are other people involved in this. Important people. She opened her envelope and pulled out 2 pages of Grandpa's handwriting. Dad writes that Bobby has been laundering money for some of his construction clients. Drug money, gambling debts, tax evasion schemes. The family trust thefts were just Bobby getting greedy and thinking Dad wouldn't notice. Jake grabbed the letter. Jesus Christ. Sarah, your grandfather was warning us that Bobby isn't just a family scammer. He's connected to actual criminals. That explained the threatening text. We weren't just exposing inheritance fraud anymore, we were potentially disrupting organized crime operations. How much deeper does this go? I asked, but I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Patricia's phone rang. Michael's name on the screen. She answered on speaker. Michael, are you almost here? Patricia, don't open any more boxes. The FBI just raided Bobby's house. The line went dead. Patricia stared at her phone, her face draining of color. FBI raid? Chen grabbed her own phone, already dialing. We need to get out of this bank immediately. If Bobby's involved with money laundering, these safety deposit boxes could be considered evidence in a federal investigation. My hands shook as I gathered up the CDs and documents. How did they move so fast? We just discovered the fraud this afternoon. Jennifer was frantically stuffing papers back into envelopes. Someone else must have reported him. Sarah, what if this has been under investigation for months? We rushed out of the vault, Chen speaking rapidly to someone on the phone about federal asset seizures and client protection. The bank manager watched us nervously from behind the counter, probably wondering why 5 people had spent 2 hours in the safety deposit vault and emerged looking terrified. In the parking lot, Patricia's phone rang again. This time it was Jennifer's husband. Jen, the FBI is at our house, his voice carried clearly in the evening air. They're asking about Bobby, about money transfers from RJW Holdings. They want to know about the down payment we got for the house. Jennifer sank against her car. Tom, don't say anything without a lawyer present. Too late. I already told them about the $150,000 Bobby gave us in 2019. Jen, they're saying it might be proceeds from criminal activity. Criminal activity. Every dollar my half-siblings had received was potentially tainted. The money that should have kept Grandma comfortable in her final years had been mixed with funds from Bobby's illegal operations. Chen hung up her call and turned to us. My contact at the U.S. Attorney's Office says this investigation has been ongoing since January. Bobby Whitmore is suspected of laundering approximately $12 million through his construction business over the past 5 years. 12 million? I felt dizzy. How much of that was supposed to be ours? That's what we need to determine. But right now, federal prosecutors are more interested in Bobby's criminal enterprise than family inheritance disputes. My phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. Asterisk FBI won't help you. Bobby has friends in high places. Take the settlement offer when it comes. Asterisk. Settlement offer? Nobody had offered us anything except lies and theft. Patricia was pacing now, her hotel manager composure completely shattered. This explains so much. Why Bobby always paid for everything in cash. Why he insisted on handling all of Dad's business relationships. Why he got so angry whenever we asked questions about the construction company finances. Jake studied the threatening text on my phone. Sarah, what if Grandpa's death wasn't natural? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I'd been so focused on the money theft that I hadn't considered whether Bobby's crimes extended to murder. The hospital records showed pneumonia and heart failure, I said slowly. But he was getting better. The doctor said he might come home. Jennifer looked up sharply. Bobby visited him alone the night he died. Said he wanted to have a private conversation about business matters. Chen was taking notes furiously. If there's any suspicion of foul play, the FBI will exhume the body. But that's a serious accusation to make without evidence. My phone rang. Dad's number. Sarah, where are you? The FBI just left here asking questions about your grandfather's will and some inheritance money. What the hell is going on? I took a deep breath. Dad, how much do you know about Bobby Whitmore? Bobby who? Your half-brother. Grandpa's son with his other wife. Silence. Then, Sarah, what are you talking about? Your grandfather didn't have other children. After everything we'd discovered, after all the evidence and recordings and stolen money, my father still didn't know the truth about his own family. Dad, I said gently, I need you to sit down. There's a lot I need to tell you. The FBI field office in downtown Los Angeles felt like something out of a crime drama, all glass and steel and American flags. Agent Rebecca Martinez had the kind of no-nonsense demeanor that made me sit up straighter in the uncomfortable plastic chair across from her desk. Ms. Whitmore, she said, flipping through a file thick enough to be a phone book, your timing is remarkable. We've been building a case against your uncle for 8 months, and you've just handed us the missing pieces. Jake shifted beside me, still processing everything I'd told Dad the night before. The phone call had lasted 3 hours and ended with Dad throwing up twice and Mom threatening to drive to Riverside to beat the truth out of someone. The trust theft is actually the least of Bobby's problems, Martinez continued. We've traced $12.8 million in suspicious transactions through RJW Holdings since 2018. Construction contracts that never existed, material purchases from shell companies, payroll for workers who turned out to be dead people. Chen leaned forward from her chair beside me. Agent Martinez, what does this mean for my client's inheritance recovery? That's complicated. The legitimate family funds are mixed with proceeds from criminal activity. We'll need to trace every transaction back to its source before any money can be released. My heart sank. How long does that take? In a case this complex? 18 months, maybe 2 years. Martinez pulled out a photograph and slid it across the desk. Do you recognize this man? The photo showed Bobby shaking hands with a heavy-set man in an expensive suit outside a restaurant. Even in the grainy surveillance image, the second man radiated menace. Vincent Carrera, Martinez said. Runs money laundering operations for gambling syndicates across Southern California. We believe Bobby's been cleaning Carrera's cash through fake construction projects since 2019. Jake studied the photo. So the money Bobby stole from us, it got mixed with mob money? Essentially, yes. Which makes recovery much more complicated. Martinez pulled out another file. But we have a proposition for you. I didn't like the sound of that. Bobby doesn't know we've been watching him. He thinks the FBI raid was just about tax evasion. We want to keep it that way while we build our case against Carrera. What does that have to do with us? We need you to act normal. Don't file civil suits, don't make public accusations, don't do anything that might spook Bobby into running or alerting his criminal associates. Chan's expression hardened. You're asking my client to delay justice for her family while you pursue a larger case. I'm asking her to help us put away people who've stolen millions from dozens of victims, not just her family. Martinez pulled out yet another photograph. This is Elena Rodriguez. Single mother of 3. Bobby laundered drug money through a fake contract for remodeling her house. When she couldn't make the payments he demanded, Carrera's people burned it down. The photo showed a charred foundation and a woman crying in the street, holding a small child. How many other victims? I asked quietly. 47 that we know of. Mostly working-class families who thought they were getting legitimate construction work. Martinez gathered the photos. Bobby's been using his father's legitimate business reputation to target vulnerable people. I thought about Grandma, rationing her medications while Bobby lived in his mansion. She was just one victim in a much larger web of cruelty. What happens to Bobby? If you help us, he goes to federal prison for 20 years minimum. Carrera gets life. And all the victims, including your family, get full restitution from seized assets. Jake caught my eye. Sarah, it's your call. I looked at Elena Rodriguez's burned house one more time. Agent Martinez, what do you need us to do? Act like a grieving family fighting over inheritance money. Let Bobby think he's winning. The hardest part about playing grieving family member wasn't pretending to be upset, it was pretending to be powerless. For 3 weeks, I watched Bobby strut around like he'd won the lottery while Agent Martinez's team built their case in the shadows. He's getting cocky, Jennifer reported during one of our secret meetings at a Starbucks 40 minutes from Riverside. Yesterday he bought a new Tesla. Paid cash. I gripped my coffee cup until my knuckles went white. Cash from where? That's what's scary. The FBI froze all his known accounts, but somehow he's still spending money like it's water. Jennifer's voice dropped to a whisper. Tom thinks Bobby might be planning to run. The possibility terrified me. If Bobby disappeared with whatever money he had left, we might never see justice for Grandma. Agent Martinez had assured me they were monitoring his movements, but federal surveillance wasn't foolproof. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, * family meeting tonight. 8 p.m. Henderson's office. Come alone, *. Jennifer saw my face change. What is it? I showed her the message. Bobby wants another meeting. Don't go. Sarah, something feels wrong about this. Why would he want to meet at Henderson's office after hours? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Dad's number. Sarah, did you get a weird text about a meeting tonight? My stomach dropped. Bobby contacted you too? He called me directly. Said there were urgent family matters to discuss and that you'd been spreading lies about Grandpa's finances. Dad's voice was tight with controlled anger. He also said if I didn't come tonight, the FBI investigation would destroy both families. Dad, you can't go. Agent Martinez specifically said. Agent Martinez doesn't have 40 years of questions about his father that need answering. I'm going, Sarah. With or without you. I closed my eyes, thinking fast. Martinez had given me an emergency contact number for exactly this situation. Dad, give me 2 hours. Don't go anywhere until you hear from me. After hanging up, I immediately called Agent Martinez. He's escalating, she said grimly. Bobby knows we're closing in, and desperate people make dangerous choices. We can't let you walk into that meeting without backup. What about my dad? He's determined to go whether I'm there or not. We'll protect him. But Sarah, this might be our chance to catch Bobby in the act of witness intimidation. If he threatens you or your father directly, we can arrest him tonight. An hour later, I sat in an unmarked van across the street from Henderson's office building, watching agents position themselves around the block. Agent Martinez handed me a wire transmitter smaller than a button. Tape this inside your shirt, right below your collar. We'll hear everything. She met my eyes seriously. If Bobby threatens violence, say the word grandmother 3 times in a row. We'll move immediately. My hand shook as I attached the device. Through the van's tinted windows, I could see lights on in Henderson's second-floor office. Bobby's Tesla sat in the parking lot next to a black SUV I didn't recognize. Sarah, Martinez said as I reached for the door handle, remember that everything Bobby says tonight can be used against him in court. Let him talk. Let him confess. Let him hang himself with his own words. I nodded and stepped into the evening air. The walk across the street felt like a mile, each step bringing me closer to a confrontation that would either end Bobby's reign of terror or put my entire family in danger. As I reached the building's entrance, I saw Dad's truck pull into the parking lot. No matter what happened in the next hour, the Whitmore family's secret war was about to become very public. The elevator ride to the second floor had never felt so long. The elevator doors opened to reveal Henderson's office building hallway dimly lit by emergency lighting. Through the frosted glass door marked Henderson and Associates, I could see shadows moving around the conference table. Dad was already inside. I recognized his silhouette even through the distorted glass. I pushed open the door to find a scene that made my blood run cold. Bobby sat at the head of the conference table like some corporate dictator, while Henderson cowered in the corner chair. Dad stood near the window, his military posture rigid with contained fury. But it was the third man that made my stomach clench, the heavy-set guy from Agent Martinez's surveillance photo. Vincent Carrera. Sarah, Bobby said without looking up from a stack of documents, so good of you to join our little family reunion. The wire under my shirt felt like it was burning against my skin. Agent Martinez was listening to every word. You wanted to talk, I said, keeping my voice steady. So talk. Bobby finally looked up, and I saw something different in his eyes. Desperation masquerading as confidence. I have a generous offer for you and your father. $1 million to walk away from all this nonsense about stolen inheritances. Dad stepped forward. Bobby, I don't know what kind of man you think I am, but I think you're a smart man who wants what's best for his family, Bobby interrupted. He gestured to Carrera. Vincent here represents some business associates who value discretion above all else. They're willing to be very generous to people who understand the importance of keeping family matters private. Carrera spoke for the first time, his voice like gravel. The FBI's been asking questions. Questions that could hurt a lot of innocent people if the wrong answers get spread around. I felt my pulse racing. They were trying to buy our silence about Bobby's money laundering operation. What exactly are you asking us to stay quiet about? I asked, hoping to get Bobby to incriminate himself. Bobby smiled, pulling out a legal document. Simple inheritance confusion. Old man gets sick, paperwork gets mixed up, money goes to the wrong accounts temporarily. Happens all the time with elderly people. Temporarily? Dad's voice was dangerously quiet. Bobby, my mother-in-law died in poverty while you were living in a mansion built with her money. Your mother-in-law was 91 years old and lived longer than most people ever will, Bobby snapped, his mask finally slipping completely. My kids needed college funds. Patricia needed her business loan. Michael needed equipment for his shops. We had productive lives ahead of us. There it was. The admission agent Martinez needed. Henderson finally spoke from his corner. Bobby, you need to stop talking. But Bobby was on a roll now, 3 weeks of pressure finally boiling over. You want to know the truth? Dad was weak. Sending money to both families, trying to keep everyone happy, never making the hard choices. Someone had to prioritize. Prioritize, I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. Is that what you call forging Dad's signature on trust documents? Carrera shifted in his chair. Bobby, we're done here. No, we're not done, Bobby said, standing abruptly. This little bitch has been threatening my entire family's future with her DNA tests and her sob stories about poor dead grandma. My heart hammered as I realized I needed to give the signal. But before I could say grandmother 3 times, Dad moved. Don't you ever, Dad started toward Bobby, his fists clenched. Grandmother, grandmother, grandmother. I shouted. The office windows exploded inward as FBI agents rappelled down from the roof. The door burst open and Agent Martinez stormed in with her weapon drawn, shouting commands that echoed off the walls. In the chaos that followed, Bobby screaming about lawyers, Carrera trying to destroy documents, Henderson having what looked like a genuine heart attack, I heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Robert Whitmore Jr., you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and elder abuse. As they led Bobby away in handcuffs, he looked back at me with pure hatred. You have no idea what you've just destroyed. But I did know. I'd destroyed a criminal empire built on my grandmother's stolen dignity. And I'd finally gotten the answer to the question that started it all. When did I discover my grandfather had a second family? The moment I decided to fight for the family that mattered most. 6 months later, I stood in the lobby of Dorothy Mae Whitmore Memorial Gardens, the assisted living facility we'd funded with the $4.2 million inheritance Dad finally received. The plaque by the entrance read, dedicated to the memory of a woman who deserved better, and the granddaughter who made sure she got it. Bobby was serving 15 years in federal prison. The stolen money had been recovered, with interest. And every month, I visited Grandma's grave with fresh flowers bought with justice.